This is Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. For over a quarter century, You Had Me at I Do has been helping couples say, I do. We bring more than 400 weddings of real-world experience as an officiant and a DJ, and this podcast is packed with what you, as the bride and groom, need to know, what you're wondering about, and what's keeping you up at night. No judgment, no fluff, just real answers and ideas for real planning. Here's today's episode.
Imagine throwing $3,000 directly into the garbage on your wedding day, all because you felt, a little too awkward to send a single 2-minute text message.
Oh, man. Or, on the flip side, imagine a beloved uncle showing up in his best suit, ready to celebrate, and realizing you didn't even put a chair at a table for him because you just, assumed he wasn't coming.
Oh my gosh, yes. Both of those are incredibly painful, real-world scenarios, and they both stem from the exact same logistical nightmare. So, welcome to today's deep dive, where we are tackling the infamous RSVP black hole. We are pulling insights from a deeply practical piece published on youhadme@ido.com.
Right, and our mission today is to equip you with a foolproof system to wrangle your guest list, get accurate head counts, and avoid that pre-wedding panic entirely without alienating your friends and family.
Exactly. The overarching theme we are unpacking here is the massive disconnect between the emotional fantasy of wedding planning and the logistical reality. You spend hours choosing the perfect heavy cardstock invitations, carefully addressing them, and sending them out into the world, and you expect a clean binary response.
Yeah, you just expect people to check yes or no and send it back.
Right. But instead, a month later, you find yourself staring at a spreadsheet full of question marks while your caterer is demanding a final head count. It turns you into an amateur private investigator. You're suddenly trying to hunt down your cousin's new girlfriend's dietary restrictions by, analyzing her Instagram posts.
Which is just exhausting.
It's so exhausting. But the relief in this material from youhadme@ido.com is the realization that this is a structural problem. It's not a mystery to be solved. It's a broken system that needs fixing.
That distinction changes everything, I think, because a mystery leaves you guessing and stressed.
Exactly. A structural problem just requires you to change your timeline and your boundaries. Before we can even touch on how to text someone for a missing RSVP, we have to look at the root cause of the panic, which almost always traces back to couples setting a trap for themselves on day one.
So let's look at that trap, because the timeline is where this whole thing goes off the rails, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The standard golden rule for a typical wedding is that invitations need to go out 6 to 8 weeks before the date. If you have international travelers or you're booking a holiday weekend, you push that to 8 to 10 weeks.
And the rationale there is purely functional.
Purely functional. You have to give out-of-town guests a realistic window to book flights and hotels without paying a premium, while giving local guests enough notice to block their weekend. But sending them too early, say 3 or 4 months out, actually backfires.
Really? Why is that?
Well, people look at an event that far in the future, think, I have plenty of time to deal with this, and toss the invitation into a drawer where it is promptly forgotten.
Oh yeah, I've definitely done that. But the real danger zone isn't when the invitations go out, is it?
No, not at all. The trap actually springs on the deadline you set for the responses. That RSVP deadline absolutely must land 3 to 4 weeks before the wedding day.
That seems to be the critical pivot point of the entire planning process.
It is the pivot point. The most common stress-inducing mistake couples make is setting their RSVP deadline just 2 weeks out from the event. They think, well, the caterer needs the numbers at 2 weeks, so I'll make the deadline 2 weeks.
Which sounds logical on paper, I guess.
It does. But then that day arrives, half the guest list is completely silent, and suddenly there is zero buffer. You are out of time, the vendor is calling, and you're panicking. And this is where we introduce the concept of the chase week. This is a brilliant proactive strategy. You must intentionally build a 1-week buffer into your calendar right after the deadline.
So if your deadline is 4 weeks out, week 3 is your dedicated chase week.
Yes, exactly. You block it out on your calendar like a mandatory meeting.
I get the mechanical logic of building in a buffer week, but as someone hosting a major event, I feel like I'd feel incredibly passive-aggressive marking a chase week on my calendar. It feels like I'm assuming the worst of my closest friends and family before I even drop the invitations in the mail. Isn't that a bit cynical?
I hear that a lot, but I wouldn't call it cynical at all. I'd call it absorbing the inevitable friction of human behavior. People don't miss RSVP deadlines because they don't care about you. They miss them because they open the mail, think, oh, obviously I'm going, put the card on the kitchen counter, and completely forget that their internal mental yes never translated into a physical action.
Right, it's like setting your clocks 5 minutes fast.
That is the perfect analogy. You know you have a tendency to run late, so you're tricking the procrastinators and yourself by building in this secret cushion. That way you're not speeding down the highway when the caterer finally calls for that head count. You've already managed the chaos.
And treating that chaos as a scheduled, valid task is really the hallmark of responsible event management, because you are running an event with vendors who literally cannot do their jobs without accurate data.
Exactly. Following up isn't being annoying, it's fulfilling your obligation as a host. But even with that buffer week, you're still doomed if you're trying to track these people down across 5 different apps. The timeline doesn't save you if the data is a mess.
Right. The logistical black hole gets exponentially deeper when responses live in what we could call like multi-channel chaos.
Yes, multi-channel chaos is the perfect way to put it. Think about how your friends view your wedding. To them, this is a deeply personal celebration of a relationship. So when they get your invitation, their instinct is to reach out personally.
Yeah, they shoot you an Instagram direct message with heart emojis saying, we wouldn't miss it.
Right. And to them, that feels like an intimate, affectionate yes. But to the person planning the event, you aren't looking for affection in that moment. You are looking for a row on a spreadsheet to populate.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's a huge disconnect.
It is. So you have this buddy texting you, we're in. A mailed paper card that comes back with the meal choice left blank, that Instagram DM from a partner, and an aunt who bypasses you entirely and emails your mom. Suddenly, your confirmed guests are scattered across platforms you can barely track, let alone organize.
The only way out of that chaos is establishing a single source of truth, right? Like picking one master system.
Exactly. Usually a digital spreadsheet or the back end of your wedding website, and that becomes the ultimate non-negotiable repository for every single response. There is an incredibly stressful cautionary tale about this exact scenario in the source material.
Oh, what happened?
So a couple needed to give their caterer final numbers on a Monday. By the Friday prior, they looked at their master list and only had 43 confirmed guests. But they had 27 question marks. They had to spend an exhausting, frantic weekend pulling every stray text, every side conversation, and every email into one place.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It was. They spent hours making phone calls. They managed to fix it by Sunday night, but it completely ruined their weekend.
And that entire weekend of panic was entirely avoidable if they had simply funneled the data from the start.
Completely avoidable.
Let me push back on the practicality of that funnel, though. I know there are people thinking, well, I spent a small fortune on beautiful letterpress paper invitations. I want the romantic experience of getting mail back. Or, my grandmother absolutely refuses to log onto a wedding website. Isn't forcing everyone onto a digital spreadsheet a bit rigid?
That is such a fair question, and it brings up the reality of the hybrid system. It is completely normal to send paper invitations with reply cards. The mental shift you have to make is understanding that the paper card is a keepsake, but your spreadsheet is the system.
Okay, so paper is the keepsake, the spreadsheet is the system.
Okay.
Like that.
Yes. It is totally fine if grandma mails a traditional card, but the absolute rule is that you must take on the burden of translation. The exact day that card arrives in your mailbox, you open it, and you manually type grandma's information into your master list.
So you do not leave a stack of beautiful paper cards on the kitchen counter, vaguely hoping you'll tally them up later.
No, you're just absorbing all those varied, chaotic responses and instantly funneling them into your one source of truth. Because if you accept RSVPs through 7 different channels and promise yourself you'll merge them in a few weeks, you will fail. You will miss someone.
Okay, so we've wrangled the timeline, and we've successfully funneled everyone into one master spreadsheet. But simply knowing a guest is showing up isn't actually enough to plan a dinner for 100 people, is it?
Not at all. Missing details create these massive blind spots. You have to collect every single piece of granular information in one pass. That means full names of every attending guest, specific meal selections if you're offering choices, dietary restrictions, and the actual names of any plus ones.
The phrasing of how you ask for this is surprisingly critical, isn't it?
It really is. If you just ask number attending, you get a digit. A digit doesn't tell you what name to print on a place card. You have to explicitly ask names of all guests in your party who will be attending.
And I imagine the same logic applies to the food. Don't ask a vague question like, any dietary needs.
Exactly. That just invites vague answers. You have to ask, please list any food allergies or restrictions for each guest in your party.
Wait, even if you are having a buffet or family-style meal, because there is a common misconception that if you're not having a plated dinner, you don't need to track allergies.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up. Yes, even for a buffet, you absolutely need allergy information. An unexpected severe nut allergy is a massive safety hazard. A catering kitchen needs to know about that days in advance to prevent cross-contamination.
Right, you cannot drop that information on a chef in the middle of a reception. It's a fundamental safety issue.
Exactly. It's about keeping people safe.
But I keep coming back to the social friction of all this. It feels a bit intense to demand so much specific data up front. If I address an envelope to a friend and I write Sarah and guest, do I really need to interrogate Sarah for her date's actual first and last name right this second? Maybe she hasn't even figured out who she's bringing yet.
I totally understand the hesitation. But there is a brilliant phrase to keep in mind here. Later is where the black hole lives.
Oh, wow. That is painfully accurate. Later's where the black hole is.
Right. If you don't get the name of Sarah's guest now, you are guaranteeing that you will have to chase Sarah down 2 weeks before the wedding. You'll be stressed, trying to finalize the seating chart and send a file to the printer for place cards, and you'll be blocked because you're waiting on a text back about a stranger's last name.
So getting absolute clarity up front prevents compounding headaches down the line.
Exactly. Okay, so we've built the perfect system. We've asked all the right, highly specific questions. We've translated the paper cards into our master spreadsheet. But it is officially Chase Week.
The dreaded Chase Week.
Yes, the deadline has passed. And despite all our perfect planning, 15 people are still completely ignoring us.
So how do you actually confront these people without ruining your relationships?
Okay, the very first rule of the chase is giving yourself permission to do it. You are allowed to follow up, and you do not need to apologize for needing an answer.
That in itself is pretty freeing, but the execution is everything. You absolutely cannot use mass group messages, right?
Oh, please do not use mass group messages. A mass group text is the fastest way to make everyone feel scolded while simultaneously kicking off the bystander effect.
Oh, right. Because if you text 15 people at once, 14 of them will assume someone else is going to reply first.
Yep, and you end up with even more silence. The follow-up has to be personal and short. You want to text or call them directly. And there's a very specific script you can use for this that is essentially bulletproof.
Let's hear it.
It goes like this. Hi, we're finalizing numbers with our caterer this week and realized we haven't received your RSVP yet. Will you be able to join us on the 9th? We'd love to know either way so we can plan accordingly.
You know, if you look closely at the mechanics of that script, it's a masterclass in interpersonal communication.
It really is.
It includes a clear external deadline. You are blaming the caterer, which removes the pressure from you. It maintains a warm conversational tone. But the heavy lifting is being done by that final phrase. We'd love to know either way.
Yes, either way.
By saying either way, you are explicitly handing them a permission slip to decline. You are removing the guilt. Often, guests delay responding because they are embarrassed.
Yeah, they can't afford the flights, or they have a scheduling conflict and they feel bad saying no. By telling them it is safe to decline, you force a binary answer.
Because at this stage in the game, you would infinitely rather know they aren't coming than guess that they are and end up paying for an empty seat.
Exactly. Which brings us to the ultimate golden rule of this entire process. Call, do not guess. The standard protocol is a maximum of 2 follow-ups. For close family members, you pick up the phone and call them. For friends, a direct text is fine. If they've been on the fence, you give them one gentle follow-up.
And if you still hear nothing after that,
you send one final message with a very clear cutoff. Something like, we have to submit our final numbers tomorrow morning. If we don't hear from you tonight, we'll have to mark you as a no, but we'll celebrate together soon.
I have to admit, sending a message like that, tell me tonight or you're out, feels incredibly harsh. It feels like an ultimatum.
In the moment, it might feel a bit uncomfortable, but you have to weigh that 2 minutes of discomfort against the catastrophic fallout of guessing. Think back to the 2 scenarios we opened with. In one instance, a couple looked at their list of non-responders and optimistically guessed yes for all of them. They paid for 30 extra meals that sat completely untouched in the kitchen.
30 meals. When you factor in the per-plate cost, the bar package, the rented chairs and linens, That is thousands of dollars completely wasted, all because they were too nervous to send a text.
Precisely. But the second scenario carries a much heavier emotional toll. Another couple looked at a beloved uncle who hadn't RSVP'd. They assumed he couldn't make the trip, they guessed no, and they left him off the seating chart. He showed up to the reception, walked into the room, and realized there was no place setting for him.
Oh man, the emotional damage of that moment at the reception, turning away family because of a logistical assumption, it makes my stomach hurt just thinking about it.
It's devastating. And both of those outcomes, the massive financial waste and the deep emotional hurt, are vastly more uncomfortable than sending a polite, direct text message during Chase Week. Calling prevents both.
When you lay out the stakes like that, the awkwardness of following up completely vanishes. It's just necessary maintenance to protect the event and the people attending it.
Exactly. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, this entire system just requires you to work backwards based on hard data.
Right. You owe the caterer real solid numbers, including all those carefully collected dietary restrictions, about 2.5 weeks out.
Yes. And to get those numbers, you need your dedicated Chase Week at 3 weeks out, which means your hard RSVP deadline has to be 4 weeks out. And suddenly, dropping the invitations in the mail at 8 weeks isn't some arbitrary tradition. It makes perfect logical sense. It's a downstream effect of that final vendor deadline.
The structure sets you free, because once you hand over those final numbers, you spend the last 2 weeks building a seating chart based on reality instead of stressful guesswork.
So to wrap this up, there are 3 actionable takeaways to carry forward. First, build the timeline backward from the caterer's deadline, ensuring you have a dedicated Chase Week. Second, no matter how many paper cards or text messages you receive, funnel every single response into one master spreadsheet immediately.
And third, when someone doesn't respond, use the either way script to give them an out, but never, ever guess.
You really don't have to love spreadsheets to plan a beautiful event. You just have to respect the logistics enough to let them do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, well said. And while this framework is tailored for weddings, the psychology here is deeply universal. Think about how this mentality applies to the rest of your life.
Oh, that's such a good point.
If you can wrangle 150 relatives without ruining a single relationship simply by removing the guesswork, setting a clear boundary, and offering a polite out with the phrase, either way,
Yeah.
what other stressful dynamics could you fix?
Right. Whether it's organizing a massive family reunion, a corporate retreat, or just a really complicated group vacation, what other logistical nightmares in your life could be solved with a simple master list and a little upfront clarity? Next time you find yourself staring at a list of question marks, remember, it's not a mystery. You just need to build in a Chase Week.
You've been listening to Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. Show notes, planning help, and ceremony support are at youhadmeatido.com/podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and send it to a bride friend who needs answers instead of more stress at 2 in the morning. Thanks for listening.